Hello, Tom. Thanks for being on my Metal Anthology channel.
Hi, Stefan.
So nice to talk to you. We will discover the mystery of Tom Fountainhead today.
I don't know if there's such mystery involved, but yeah.
There's a little bit, I guess, because you're involved in so many things regarding music, but at the same time, you were not in a band full time at any point in your career. Um, But in
That's
the
not
middle scene, you were in Obscura for sure for a bit, and we will talk about that later. But just tell me a little bit your way you did your ascension as a musician from start and to up to now that you become the musician you are.
wow. Okay, that's a tall order. I've been doing this for a hot minute, so I'll try to get to the most important ones. So
Yeah.
I was born in a small town at the Baltic Sea, and my dad was operating a vinyl record shop. So I basically grew up around music, even though my parents were not musicians. My dad was in a band way back in the day, but otherwise, this was just something that I felt compelled to do, like from an early age.
Okay.
I always wanted to be a musician. So, long story short, after finishing school, that's basically instantly what I became, a musician. And
That's
for
cool.
a little bit, yeah, for a little bit, I wanted to study jazz guitar, which turned out to be
Okay.
a horrible idea. And
Why?
well, because I didn't, at no point did I want to play jazz. I just wanted the skills. I just wanted to learn from,
Yeah. To learn the fretboard.
yeah, because where I come from at the Baltic
But you
Sea,
don't like fret. That's true.
yeah, that's another thing, yes. But we'll get to that. So either way, like where I come from, there's no such thing as music education, really.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, if I want to do this for a living, I better go study with the best. And long story short, I did not end up studying jazz, and I moved to Berlin with a suitcase and a guitar.
Wow.
And this is really where my career then started to, yeah, to go somewhere. And I released a solo album of my own music while playing with tons of bands. Like really early on, when MySpace was still a thing, I got
Okay.
in I
Shit.
got in touch, or rather, people got in touch with me for a few things that I had online. And this is how I ended up joining a project called Pitt's Miniman Project with Marco Miniman, who is
Yeah.
probably Germany's most well-known drummer.
With
And
with Rigovan.
yeah, exactly. And so we did two albums with that, and I did a solo album, played with tons of local bands, but it wasn't really anything that, people outside of that little sphere of influence really took notice of. So it was really underground. And then, because I had been friends with some of the guys in Obscura, or formerly in Obscura, I got the call to join that band. And then we did an album called Akroasis, which ended up, I think, becoming the band's most successful at that time. It entered the Billboard charts and whatnot. But the situation in the band was really not what I had expected. There were like lots of personal issues. And again, long story short, I got kicked out on the last day of mastering the album, 1 week before the tour. Bags already packed, schedule cleared, and it
That's what
was
I learned.
a nightmare. And then the nightmare continued with somebody in the band basically taking my songwriting credits and bullying me online for years. My videos got deleted, tons of online harassment to this day, kind of like a smear campaign. So it was really kind of a steep learning curve for myself, where I just wanted to play music and do what I do on on a high level. And then this was a giant learning curve about some of the other things that can happen when you're a musician that I had no idea about. I had no idea that that could even happen. You hear stories about your famous, your influences and famous musicians getting into this kind of trouble, and you're like, oh, well, I guess that happened as well, but you never imagine yourself being in such a situation. So that was not great. But then at the same time, because the album was very widely received well and got a lot of press attention, and which brings us to the other thing, because I am pretty much, at that point, I was the only person in metal, as far as I know, playing fretless guitar in that style. Now there's other people influenced by that, but at that time I was the only one. So having an album out with full of fretless guitar in metal, fortunately, people can't take that away from you, because as much as they try to want to take credit for your work, if you are the only person doing that, it's kind of hard to, so that kind of saved my ass, really. And so then that became kind of a cult thing, I guess. And I got lots of other opportunities. Fortunately, after that, played in all corners of the world with bands like Defeated Sanity, Belphegor is also a well-known band.
You're still in Belphegor?
No.
Okay.
No, I played for them with for a festival season, like a festival.
Okay.
Latin American tour in 2023. Yeah, might have been two or three. Yeah. But it definitely wasn't a permanent position. I'm not the guy.
I wasn't sure about that, because when I said that you were not in a band, I was meaning not as a live musician, but more as a songwriter and having a band doing albums, cycles. But at the same time, I did knew that you tour with Defeated Sanity, and I had Josh on the channel.
Awesome. Yeah,
like cool. 3-4 months ago. So cool. And
they're one of my favorite bands of all time. They're just phenomenal.
Yeah.
But the reality of a musician like myself is that you have to be doing many things at once, and you have to see where opportunity takes you, because you can't, like, even in a band as Obscura, you can't pay your bills with being in that band. It's important.
No, it's not enough.
It's not enough. And also I had kids very early. I had kids in my mid-20s. So I'm a father of 2 teenagers now, which is crazy. But you have the responsibility. And so basically the last 15 years of my life, I've just been working non-stop. And when there's a band needing a guitar player, I can do that. If somebody needs a ghost writer or a collaboration writer for their stuff, I can do that. I've been doing mixing and mastering and or music production for hundreds of people over the years, guest solo. So it's like all these things, and until now there has not been an opportunity coming my way where it's like, okay, I'm going to join this band full time, because this is going to pay my bills, and this is a job that I can do on a day-by-day basis. And as long as that's not the case, I'm just going to continue doing what I do and play with lots of people, work with lots of artists. And that brings us to the present, because after doing so many things for so many years, now I have a new album coming out with Changeling, which is my current main project, my solo project, and here we are. So I hope that was not like a whole novel of stuff.
I wanted to know a little bit about that, because we are hearing a lot of stuff online, and I can say that most of people are defending you a lot. So for the Obscura thing and the credit, you not being credited for everything you did for the band, and that's a fucking shame. And we heard other stories, obviously, this year with this new release, a sonification. So uh, I had to clear that out with you because I think when you have ideas that you put on an instrument and that you like share them with people, they can't take your ideas and then just, oh, you're out of the band and we will take everything we want.
Oh,
uh
you'd be surprised how often that happens.
yeah,
You'd be
it happens
really,
more than we think.
yeah, yeah, it happens all the time. Like in many different ways. And it's like you're right. Like there's a lot of people who have been coming to my defense and also like having my back, and that's amazing, and that really saved me on a lot of levels. But you also have to remember that when I came out, like talking about these things and saying, "Hey, well, this is not right," you have to remember the timeline. That was in 2016, and I only did speak about it online after the band leader went online bad mouthing me in like dozens and dozens of interviews without any lead up to that. So it was like I'm out of the band, and then I'm just waiting for the album to come out. Behind the scenes, we're trying to clear like who remains with what, and just trying to get a civil and friendly way out of this. And then suddenly the album comes out, the credits are all fucked up. Um, you know, the tone around the album, the press releases they send out. There were so many things where I was either attacked or like my contribution was not mentioned,
Yeah.
or even that somebody else was like brought in instead of what I've done, and then yeah, this guy did it, or just it was just madness, and it took me by surprise completely. And there was one interview which was like a very small fanzine interview in the UK, where this person who had been attacking me was just saying the most ridiculous stuff, like things that you would expect like a 13-year-old say on the schoolyard, but not the leader of an international successful band. And the fan scene, they reached out to me and they were like, "Hey, listen, do you want to do like a counter statement, because this seems fishy?" And up until that point, I hadn't even said anything outside of my own social media. I even hadn't even made a statement. So I gave them a statement, and then that statement kind of went viral a little bit in the scene after, I think, Metal Injection, Blabbermouth. They took
Yeah.
parts of that statement, and
Yeah,
then suddenly
parts.
that was all over the internet. And then for most people who had no idea about the backstory, it was just suddenly I was, oh, that's the guy who talks badly about somebody else. While the reality was that I had been going through all these attacks and somebody was trying to take credit for my work. And here I am trying to defend myself. But then obviously the fan base doesn't know that, because you're going against somebody who has 10 to 20 times the reach and the industry connections that you have. And suddenly you're swept up in this whirlwind of stuff. And it was crazy, man. And like, honestly, now I can talk about it and be, we can be chill about it and talk about it. But I spent years in therapy after that
Oh
to
my
make
god.
sense of everything. And so that was 2006, and most people thought I was just trying to. I was being a grifter. You know, here's this guy we hadn't heard of him before. Then he's like in the band for a minute, and then they kick him out. Well, obviously there must be something wrong, and you know,
And can you,
now it's 8 years later, and now people believe the stories because it's been happening again and again and again. And now
yeah,
suddenly it's like, oh, well, yeah, Tom said it all along. Yeah, really. I did say it all along. Where were most people for the last 8 years while I was having to defend this position? It's like, so I'm being vindicated at one point, but also there's nothing, like there's nothing in the world that can make up for the things that um, for the negative things that have happened in my career just because of that. like doors shut in my face. Bands, like the list of bands that I talked to was that, well, we really need a guitar player, but we really can't hire you because that would diminish our chances of ever touring with Obscura. You know, it's just
Damn.
list of bands and opportunities that just completely vanished out of that, and people don't see that, they don't hear about that, they just well. So
But they
it's
will
really
know.
difficult.
They will know now that you are releasing this mammoth of an album.
Yeah.
Changeling, it's the debut album, self-titled album. You wrote all the stuff on that album and you perform like all guitars. You have a fretless bass player, a drummer, and a singer who was in Alkaloid also and Dark Fortress,
Yeah,
Morean.
yeah, yeah.
That's a great band. You have, I don't even know how you did manage to have so many good performers on that album. And on top of that, you have a 50-piece orchestra.
More or less, yeah.
So that's a lot of positive things right now. And I think that album is a statement of progressive death metal, but it's not just progressive death metal. It will be a reductive thing to say that is just progressive death metal because it's way more than that. It's way more eclectic. There's so much stuff. Tell me about that adventure that is Changeling from the inception of maybe I will do that album, and it's coming out on April 25th on Season of Mist.
Right. Well, thank you for that segue. Before I talk myself into a corner, but that's another long story, but I'll try to make it quick. So we just touched on the Obscura situation. So, and I said I'm not the only person who had these kind of problems with that band. So somebody else who had that same problem is Christian Münzner, who I've been friends. Yeah, him and I, we've been in each other's lives for the past 25 years on and off. So at some point we were, like shortly before the pandemic, we were talking about doing an album together, finally. And then writing music together because we wanted to both kind of reclaim the music that we had been writing for Obscura, and now we couldn't perform anymore because somebody was preventing us from doing that, right? And so we're like, hey, let's just write an album, go on tour, write in that style together. I think there's enough people who would really like to see us collaborate, and then on tour we could play all those songs again finally. So we went on to write together, and it wasn't really meant to be for several reasons. So we never finished the album together, and he went on to rejoin Obscura. We now know that was also short-lived, but he has to tell that story himself. So I was already, I already had written at least 6 or so songs or song ideas by that point. And so I thought, hey, I think I'm just gonna go all in and I'm gonna finish this by myself. Because you have to understand that since the Obscura thing was very traumatic for me for a lot of years, I would have never considered writing for that style of music on my own. I just didn't want to do that. It was just not something that I felt good about doing. I would have done it together with Chris, right? So that was my in. But then when he left the project, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna go all in, and I'm gonna make it the best I can do, and I'm gonna kind of pick up where I left off with the Akroasis album musically. And then I went on to do that, and I asked some of the people that I had been wanting to collaborate on such a project for a long time. Like I really wanted to do something with Morean for a long time because we've been knowing each other for many years, and he's somebody that I really admire. He's a great friend and an unbelievably skilled musician, and I'm not worthy to have people like him and Aaron and Mike on my album, I feel like a kid in the candy store. Because these are people that can basically just pull off everything that I'm like, can we do this? And of course they can, you know. So that's fantastic. And so I built a band, basically, even though it was always going to be my next solo album. I wanted there to be a band on all songs and to have like a very cohesive sound to all the songs. And then I spent a few years basically writing, producing, recording, um, you know, the album. And it was done around 2023-ish. And then I waited for a long time because, you know, I didn't have a record deal at that point. I had been doing many albums completely independently, which was great at that time. But now I really thought, okay, I have such a big album and it's like 60 minutes of music, so many people, such a vast project, and a big budget too, the biggest budget I've ever worked with. And I did it all myself, but I can't release it myself. Like it would
need promotion.
It would need proper promotion, proper distribution, proper publishing, everything. And I didn't think it was the right thing to do to just get it out, you know. So I waited for a long time, and then finally Season of Mist offered me the deal, and they were saying, listen, we are going to release this anyhow, but really please do think about how we present this, because we don't think that releasing this as your next solo album will do very well in terms of marketing and numbers. So if we can you already have a band, just make this a project of its own and give it its own name and its own atmosphere, which it already has on the album. But now we've kind of built, Changeling, the project around that. And so the album name became now the band name, and here we are.
I did feel it was in the making for quite a while, because we can see the influences on some songs of Akroasis, and there's more. Obviously, there's a lot more, and I felt that the album had to be written on many years, because it felt so mature.
Oh, thank you.
Because when you write an album like in a short period of time, it can be great, but it can have that kind of maturity in the songwriting. I think there's so much stuff going on that album, and I'm sure some people will love completely some songs and will like have a hard time with other ones. I'm not that kind of guy, because I'm really eclectic in my taste, so that gives me a chance to really absorb everything. And when you are listening for that album for maybe 5 times or more, I think it clicked way more.
Yeah, you're right.
Some songs click at the first listen, some of them, not all.
Yeah, that's also kind of built into the album, because so what I do is usually write with a concept. Like I don't, for my own music, I don't sit down with a guitar and like, hey, let's see what comes out. Like I set up a concept that I want to work in, and so I set myself limitations and boundaries. And before I don't know, like as long as
German.
I don't know if it is. It's just the way I work. But even the way, I'm not sure about that, but it works for me. So hear me out. My process is that I start with a concept, and so on this album, the concept is that we are starting from the past of progressive death metal, and as the album progresses and goes on, we go into the future. So that means that the album starts with like these shorter, catchier songs that are full of references to stuff that I've done in the past, but also stuff that I've been influenced by. Cynic, Death, Morbid Angel.
Oh yeah, you just named three of my favorite band, and
And
they influenced the scene so much.
of course, and
Yeah,
yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
Green Bloody Gore.
for sure. And those were those bands were my introduction into death metal, progressive death metal, technical death metal, whatever you want to call it. And so we are starting on the album with bringing those influences out and really wearing it on our sleeves. And so the songs are shorter, they're more catchy. You know what's coming, right? And then as the album is separated into 4 chapters, and that's chapter 1. And so then there's a little interlude, and then in chapter 2 we kind of take that basic foundation of technical death metal, and then we fuck with it, and then we we have songs like Abyss which was the first single in
Yeah,
the second chamber, um, second chapter, where you can hear it's a death metal song, but there's also lots of different things and influences that you will not find anywhere else, and little tricks that make this more unique and experimental, maybe for some people.
yeah.
I never think of it as experimental, but this is where we start doing things that hasn't been done before. And so then in chapters 3 and 4, it really sprawls into things that I think I can offer to this genre of music as unique visions and things that you can't hear anywhere else. If people don't like that specific vision of it, that's totally fine. But this is what I can offer. This is what I have. And so this is how we go from the past to the future. And the last song, obviously, being the longest one, the most adventurous.
Anathema.
Yes. And
Incredible song.
that's actually basically Weltseele 2. So on the Obscura Akroasis, this is how I kind of try to get it full circle, because on the Akroasis album, the one song that I was more or less properly credited for, that I wrote
It's the
basically
last one.
is the last one. That was a 15-minute song with band and string quartet at that time. So for this album, I really wanted to continue where I left off with that and say, okay, we're going to do another one. This time it's bigger, longer, and uncut. So this is basically taking that idea and taking it to the next level.
So that's true. That it's like a second part of the closing track of Akroasis.
Yeah.
Then I love the song on that Obscura album, and I think this one is a notch better.
Well, thank you for saying that.
To be honest, it's my favorite track on the album. That's the one I've listened to the most, because usually I will start the album and listen to it entirely, but sometimes I'm like, I just want to listen to that mammoth of a track just by itself, and it feels really like that, because when I heard the first song after the intro, I was like, holy hell, it really sounds like Akroasis. The song itself, Akroasis, like a continuation of that style of songwriting. And you said that it's like we took like the basics of technical death metal, but with a lot of soloing, guitar soloing, and some acrobatics.
Yeah,
we can say it that way. And then the sound evolved on the album, and the songs are getting longer. And by the end of the last song, you're like, holy hell, I wasn't expecting to have such a journey.
yeah.
That's how it feels.
It is a journey. So thank you for saying that. And it's also a concept album lyrically. So the musical journey is mirrored in the lyrics, because the protagonist in the lyrics goes through quite a journey. And so it really comes together on both of those levels. And listen, it's like I've been, it's always a different thing when you're listening to an artist and, like he released this album and he was on that album, and now it's a couple of years later. It just feels like a different timeline. It doesn't feel like there's so much time passed, because you can listen to the work. But if you are in it, doing it, if you haven't released an album for almost in that specific style of music for a long time, it really feels there's a heavy commitment with that, right? And so I didn't want to come back to this specific style of music. I've done many albums in the meantime, but not specifically that thing. And so I thought to myself, when I come back to that specific thing, I need to find a way to give people what they want, and give them, like, check the boxes. But also at the same time, I have to stay true to something that I've always done as a musician, which is I always try to come up with something that hasn't been done before. Sometimes that works out great, sometimes not so great, but that's always the thing that I try to do whenever I can, because I think I should. I think it's a noble quest,
Yeah. Bringing something else to the scene instead of just doing what I've been done so many times. And I think it's really hard to get a sound that is truly original these days, because everything has been made on almost so many crossovers at the same time. But you can still show some influences, but having a product that is your own and you feel like that sounds like Changeling. It's technical, progressive death metal with some experimental thing thrown here and there. The tempo goes from very fast to really slow, ambient. There's a lot of things happening, and that's why it's a journey, and that's why I love it. It's not just look on full throttle all the time and blasting solos, and no, it's not that. There's a lot of that, but there's way more to explore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I like the songs that I write, and the music that I do has been called experimental or avant-garde or all kinds of things over the years, right? And I don't think any of that is true. I just write the things that I want to hear, and it's like Hans Zimmer, the composer.
Yeah. Inception. I said the word Inception earlier.
Right. But I heard an interview with him recently, and he had just the greatest quote about this that I remember since then. And he said, some people call my music original. Some people call my music, just derivative. People have all these different labels for that. But at the end of the day, my music is not original. It's just the sum total of all the music that I have listened to in my life. And I was thinking, that's so true. I think that's true for all of us. The music that you do should reflect all the different influences and all the different points of interests that you have as a musician. And so Changeling doesn't necessarily have all of that, but it certainly has a ton of the things that I have been interested in over my lifetime as a musician. And also, yeah. So,
talk to me about that. I'm pretty sure you know Bumblefoot.
Of course, I know. Like he was one of the main people way back in the day to actually inspire me to go fretless, because he had already been doing it shortly before he started. Yeah, he had just started experimenting with it, and he was like a tiny speck on the underground guitar scene. And I heard what he was doing, and I was so inspired. I'm still inspired by him. He's just the greatest.
I was almost sure that he was a big inspiration for you, and such a versatile guitar player. He can almost do anything. It's incredible all the things he can do with guitars. And tell me maybe other influences in music, particular artists or bands that really vibrate with you.
In general, or on this album?
In general, just in general. But you can answer both.
Yeah. That's difficult to answer because I have there's so many things that I'm interested in. To me, there's no good there's no like genres or anything. It's just good music or bad music, for me.
Yeah, like
Interesting music.
I always say that.
Yeah, and maybe not even that. Maybe it's just music that I'm interested in and music that doesn't interest me.
Yeah, because it's
So
very subjective.
yeah, like it's so many things. Like I just went to see a band called Silent Planet. I think they're awesome. And then I love Devin Townsend.
Oh yeah.
I love Bill Frisell, who's a jazz guitar player, whose influence on what I do is immeasurable, but probably people who are not familiar with that wouldn't make the connection because it's in a totally different context. I love lots of interesting classical music, I love orchestral music from Joe Hisaishi, who is one of my biggest influences. If you don't know the name, he's the
No, I don't know.
He's the one who composed most of the music for the Studio Ghibli movies.
Okay.
Right.
That rings a bell.
Yeah. So most people have heard his music, but maybe don't know his name. I love electronic music. I love Square Pusher and Avex Twin and all of that. Square Pusher, I think he's genius. He's one of my absolute heroes. I love Christoph Penderecki. I love, just the list goes on and
yeah,
on.
For sure. On. It's a hard task to say that.
Yeah, and like my favorite band in the world these days is a band from Wales called Biffy Clyro.
Biffy Clyro, yeah, I know. It's alternative metal rock experimental. They are going.
Also call it stadium rock because that's really what they do. Like every song they write is like a gigantic hymn made to be played in stadiums. And I think they are just the best band working today in terms of consistency and songwriting and just, so it's I love Jacob Collier, stuff from all over the different, from the musical landscape. And I'm still, at the heart of it, I'm still like a kid playing with toys. So here's my Jacob Collier toy. Here's my Morbid Angel toy. What if these two played together? That's really what I do.
That's great. I like the comparison.
That's actually, it's a funny thing to say, but this is exactly what happens on Abyss.
Oh yeah.
Abyss really taking my Morbid Angel toy and then putting it on the table together with my Jacob Collier toy because like he's done very interesting things with moving into microtonal, we could call microtonal keys that are not in the Western tonal system, where he goes into a key called E flat half sharp or something. So in between the keys that we usually do. And that's what I do on Abyss as well. So this is like a death metal song where I modulate up and down the whole song, up and down a quarter tone in between, Western tone systems. And so it's very complicated to do that. But at the end of the day, it's really just me playing with my toys, being like, what would happen if these two,
play together,
become a team?
That's great, and it helps to create your own sound in a way. But two opposite artists that are put in the mix together, and you blend, and let's go.
Yeah.
And it still fits. It's working.
Oh.
And I'd like to underline the work of Morean because the vocals are so diverse on that album and quite experimental in some parts. There's throat singing, there's a lot of different growl singing, a lot of clean singing, a lot of raspy singing, gritty voice. He goes all over the place.
Yeah.
I really love that. Yeah, that's his vocal for the part, really.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite people, one of my favorite vocalists, and he's such a huge part of the album, not only with his vocals, but also because he wrote all the lyrics, and that's really important to the album, and I'm so I'm so blessed that I can get my friend Morean to write lyrics for this album and be a part of it, because that's really, we started this conversation talking about some of the more difficult things in my career that didn't necessarily work as intended. But also, like, one of the awesome things about being me is that I've made so many connections with people who are just amazing at what they do, and such cool personalities as artists and people over the years. And lots of them are on this album. And so the fact that I get to do this, and I call my friend Morean and I'm like, hey, I've got this music, you want to sing on it? And he's like, fuck yeah, let's go. That's such a cool thing that really, makes me happy in a way that I have trouble describing to people. That's such a cool thing. And the only thing I take issue with is you saying that it's so experimental, because this is kind of what I'm talking about in the last thing we discussed, that just like myself, Florian, I think he is the amazing musician that he is because he's been a part of and interested in so many different kinds of music and so many different styles and ways of expressing yourself as a musician. And so when we get together and we work on a vocal part and we write music like that, we are not thinking about being experimental. We are just thinking about what we think would be the best thing, the coolest thing here to express what we want to express with this song or this part or this lyric. And the fact that him and we both have very diverse backgrounds musically, and we are just equally interested in classical music as we are in metal and in other things. Florian, for example, he has a very strong background in flamenco music, but a lot of people don't know. And he also brought that, and he brought that to the album as well in little ways. So this is,
here's Paco de Lucia.
This is basically us building me musically, him vocally, building a musical personality just by saying, well, I like this, I like this, I like this, so we are going to hear all of that.
That's cool. I'm probably sure he was quite inspired by your work to decide to work with you, but at the same time to create all this concept of lyrics. And
he delivered like nothing else. Very proud. Yeah. And also the lyrical concept is really cool. The lyrics are amazing. And yeah, what can I say? I'm really happy about all of this.
And you said that it's not a solo project, it's more getting into a real band. Is that just a studio thing, or maybe we will see on the road somewhere in the future, or is there any plans to maybe write more under that name?
All of the above. So yes, I would absolutely love to take this on the road and to play this music live for people. Like, you have no idea how much I would love that, because it hasn't been possible for me to tour as much as I would have liked to, and I never got to tour with Obscura. So some of the most formative music that I have been doing in my career, also with other bands like Amok Symphony, which is a Indian band that I was in. We did a double album, which I'm super proud of, and we never got to play that on stage for people. Lots of other examples. Pitt's Minimum Project, 2 albums, never played a show. Yeah. And so this has been like I
didn't even know you were on that album, Pitt's Minimum. I've been listening to that.
There's 2 albums, and I'm on both. I'm one of many guitar players on the first one, and then the second one, the Psychic Planetarium, is basically 4 of us and me doing all the guitars.
Oh wow! I didn't know at all.
Oh really? Yeah. Well,
but I know the project well. Yeah.
Cool. I didn't.
Jimmy Pitts, I know him. I'm always so many projects.
I'm always surprised when people know that album, because to me it feels like we did it, we were happy with it, and then it kind of just disappeared. So that's super cool, and it actually has its 10-year anniversary this year. So I hope we can do something to celebrate that, and maybe have a re-release, something. I would really like to remix and remaster it, and then that would be cool. But anyway, my point is, there's so many things that I've done that I never got to really play for people. And I have been on tour playing my own music. I had a headlining tour of India last year, which was awesome.
In India.
And
Oh yeah.
and little things like that. But I think that's going to be the next thing for me. That's going to be my number one goal for the next years. I want to become a touring entity and play all of this music for people, because I have been waiting such a long time to do that. And so we have to see how that will be possible, because Florian is in the Netherlands, Aaron is in the UK, Mike is in the US, and the world is not getting any easier for touring musicians. So
So
we have to see
expensive.
we have to see what's possible. But the short answer is yes, 100%. And how, with whom exactly, in what kind of capacity, we'll just have to see, and wait for opportunities to come. If any of your listeners are working at a booking agency that can help us make that a reality, reach out to me. Like, I want urgent booking help to make all of this possible. And then finally, yes, I also would definitely love to write more for this project, because for this album, as proud as I am on it, about it, it's just me writing, and then other people kind of making my vision a reality, which is cool. But that's not the same as writing for the people. I always say that the best composers write for their ensemble. And so in that way, I kind of failed, because I wrote this music and then I kind of put the
It's a
ensemble.
different process.
Yeah, so I would really like to, go into another project with the same artistic direction, and know who's going to play what, and then write for their strengths. I think that could be something really cool for the future. So I would love that.
Totally. I'd love to hear that. And if you are doing a tour, I hope you will have a time slot long enough to play the entire album. It will be amazing to have all that album in full. It will be, I think, such a great experience live. And there's so many details that we will see live that we hear, but when you see it, oh, he's doing it like that. And by the way, do you have a fretless guitar you use for the album close to you?
This one,
I don't see it. Can you just? Oh yeah, yeah. Now I
that's
see
the
it.
exact guitar that I used for all the
Wow,
fretless parts on the album. Yeah, only this one.
it sounds so. It's hard to describe. It sounds like uh, it's smooth. It's warm. Yet it has some attack to it. Obviously, it sounds ambient. There's more than one adjective to qualify the sound of this instrument. And during the rhythm section is really different than the sound of the leads, obviously, during the solos. Uh, it's really compelling to me and really different than what we are used to hear in metal.
Well, thank you. The thing about fretless guitar is, to me, it's a different instrument. It's a new instrument, and it's not the same as fretted guitar. Like, like in this meme, like this one and this one, they are not the same. Let me make this dramatic statement, saying this one and this one, they look the same, but they're not the same. it's
Yeah,
it's two different worlds, and you can do some things on both guitars, and you can do certain things only on normal, regular fretted ones, and you can some things you can only do on fretless instruments. So it's like I appreciate you saying all of those nice things about the fretless parts on the album, but it's also like an electric guitar, normal electric guitar. You know, you have the Sex Pistols, you have Pink Floyd, you have Morbid Angel, and you know, Necrophagist. Like you have country, you have blues, you have ambient music, you have My Bloody Valentine, you have so many different things coming from that breed of instruments. And so now just imagine that the same can be true and is true with fretless guitars. Like there's a whole world of possibilities from that one. And so sometimes people who have not had the chance to play and experience a fretless guitar before, but they just see somebody using it and like, oh wow, that's cool. They think that it's fretless guitar does one thing, and then it's going to be that thing forever. But that's not true. You can do a lot of different things on it.
We heard Bumblefoot do a lot, and he did a lot, and I think you're doing a lot. Yeah, you can develop a really unique song, and there's so many diverse things that you can do on that instrument. Do you remember the sweep picking part in Anathema? The main riff sweep picking part?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Can you play that?
Not off the top of my head. No. It's been a long time since we recorded that.
I don't know. I have that part that is sticking in my mind so much because we are hearing it quite some.
Yeah,
maybe 4 or 5 times.
Awesome, but so I don't know the part. Like I had to go back to my transcriptions and relearn it. But what I can tell you, it's that it's actually not sweeping all the time. It's not.
Okay.
It's actually finger picking.
There's finger picking throw in there.
Yeah. So basically, the technique that I'm using there is when I go up an arpeggio, like I'm plucking with my fingers.
Yeah.
And if I come back down, if I descend the same arpeggio, I use my pick.
It's really hybrid picking. A lot of countrymen are using that, and more metal musicians are using that technique. Maybe the last decade, I think it's getting more popularity. Hybrid picking and chicken picking, and
for sure. I've done a ton of hybrid picking, even before the Obscura album in death metal context. But then on the Obscura album, there's a little bit of a story behind that if you want to hear it.
Yeah, go. Absolutely.
So, like I said, I have kids, and when they were really little, that was before I ended up joining Obscura. When they were really little, my son was on a playground, and he got out of my sight somehow, and he just got up and started walking towards the entrance of the playground, and I just saw his little head go out of the entrance, and I was on the other side of the playground. So I panicked, and I ran around the playground, which had like a little field in the middle, so I had to run around, jumped over the fence to catch him before he could be in danger of being run over by a car. The problem was that I had a surgery before that. It's another story, but I couldn't really run as I could, and so I got stuck with my foot on the
top of the fence, or
on the fence. Exactly. Thank you. And so I fell down on the pavement on my right elbow.
Oh my god! So this is not good for picking.
No, this is the radius bone right here, and this is basically responsible for your picking motion. So I broke that right in two.
Fuck.
And so, being a musician, I had bills to pay, I had shows to play, and then not that long afterwards, I got the call from Obscura. But, alternate picking, yeah, it's a difficult thing to do. It was a literally painful thing to do at that time. Now it's fine, but it took me a long time to develop this technique again. So in the Akroasis days, a lot of the things that people would play with alternate picking, I would finger pick, and I would develop. I went back to my training on classical guitar that I had as a kid, and I kind of figured out how to do the same thing with a combination of very little picking and a lot of finger picking. And so a lot of the things that you hear around that time, and I still love doing that, is actually plucked notes instead of picked notes.
Wow.
And and that's the reason, because I literally
Such a
couldn't.
story, man.
Yeah.
Because of your kid, because of him.
Yeah.
Because he ran away from you. He
Yeah.
ran away from you.
Yeah. And then years later, you're like, people are like, yeah, that's your style. That's awesome. I saw hybrid picking metal in the first time in one of your videos, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but I only did it because I had to. There was literally no other way I could play this material.
That's crazy because you talked about Christian Münzner earlier, and because of his condition with his left hand, he had to learn how to play guitar again. Basically, he had to adapt because it wasn't his hand picking; it was more that one. But because of his middle finger, and man, you'll never notice that he played differently, and since his songwriting has evolved because of that also.
Yeah, for sure.
On
And
his last solo album and on Alkaloid, he's not in the band anymore, but in Valediction, the Obscura album, I think it's one of my favorite Obscura album, if not the best. It's a more melodic one, less technical, but I really love it because of his soloing.
yeah, and I am of the belief that if we have all the options, we tend to not live up to our potential. I think we as human beings and as artists, we need limitation. We need limitation so our creativity can flow and our resilience can flow. And so Christian, I know he's struggling with this condition so much, and it's amazing that he has been able to rise above that. But I also, and I don't want to speak for him at all, I'm just speaking for myself with other things that I had to deal with in my life. These things went on to define me, these limitations went on to define me and created my best work, because I had to overcome these obstacles. And I think that's true for a lot of musicians. Maybe it's also true for him that he gained a lot of things through this limitation that he would have not gained if he had been in possession of all of his left-hand fingers for the entire time. That's all I'm going to say, because I really don't want to speak for him with something that's like so uniquely to him. But just in general, I think we have to use our limitations to our advantage. That's the only thing we can do, but because they're not going away by themselves.
Yeah, that's it. And I think both of you overcame that thing and became better guitar players because of that. And
obviously
different guitar players.
His condition is on a whole another level than anything that I could. So I don't want to compare this. I'm just
no, it's two different things. Completely. Yeah.
But limitation. That's also why I love writing with concepts, because I am limiting away all these different options that I could be pursuing with the concept. Like, the concept keeps me on track and says all of those things that you could also do, they're not going to fit here. So do the best, figure out the coolest thing that you can within these boundaries. And that's when the best ideas come.
Yeah, indeed. And you were involved in a lot of projects obviously, and you played a lot of guest solos. You made some albums that were released as independent that I think I don't know about. I, I want you to tell us what will be the best work you did that you'd like us to check out. Maybe say throw a few names right there, and I'm going to take a shot at them for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that opportunity. So I'm just going to rattle off a couple of albums that I think are really important for me that I've worked on. My two solo albums, Fear is the Enemy and Reverse Engineering, obviously. Pit's Minimum Project 2,
Yeah.
the Psychic Planetarium is the name of the album. That's a big one, which also has like a giant 20-minute, 23-minute song on it.
It's a crazy song. Yeah, I really love that one.
Amok Symphony 4, which is
Fourth one. That's the Indian project.
Yeah, that's the Indian band project that I was a part of with some absolutely amazing musicians, and very proud of that album. That's a very collaborative, super interesting album that mixes so many different influences and sounds. That's really cool. I really love that album. I did a power metal album with a German band, with a local band, which I called Thunder and Lightning.
Thunder and Lightning, like the album by
Thin Lizzy.
Thin Lizzy, yeah.
Yeah.
Their last album in 1983 was called Thunder and Lightning.
I think that's probably where the name comes from. But yeah, I did an album with them called Fear, and that's really cool because like I didn't have anything to do with the songwriting, or at least very little. But I did all the lead guitars on that album, all the guitar solos, and that's an album that I really like, and I'm really proud of my work on that one.
I love power metal, so
I think for now, that's enough. You know,
because too many is like saying nothing.
Yeah, there's like 100 albums out there that I worked on. Like, probably by this point, like I've been saying I've worked on 100 albums like 5 years ago. So probably now it's like 150-ish. I don't know. But those are things that I remember really having, like where I reached new levels for myself, and where in the combination of things, good things happened, and I am really fond of the work on those ones.
Great. I will listen to all these albums. And you talk about the project Pit's Minimum, and you played, I think, some guitar solo on the Fractured Dimension.
Yeah.
Another stellar project that was overlooked by so many people, but the quality in there is incredible.
Yeah. It's a shame that not many people have heard that. But that's a super cool project by my good friend Mr. Jimmy Pitts, who's also behind Pit's Minimum project. And he was the first person outside of my circle of people that I knew personally who ever reached out to me and say, "Hey, I like your playing, let's do something." He was the first person.
Oh yeah.
When nobody knew who I was. And look where we are, and we've done so many things together over the last now almost 20 years.
Yeah, and he did also. He worked with Christian in Eternity's End.
No. I played in his solo band. I played second guitar for him, but that wasn't.
No, I'm talking about Jimmy Pitts. He played keyboard on the first album by Eternity's End, but you played with the solo project, of Christian.
Right. Sorry, misheard you about
that. Live.
Yeah.
Just live.
Yeah.
Those songs are incredible. I really love his 3 albums. The last 2 are my favorites for sure, but the first one is cool too. But last two albums are just incredible instrumental
They're really good.
albums.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's a lot of stuff to listen to, and there's Changeling to listen to. Obviously, it will be available for everyone to listen on April 25th on Season of Mist. Don't miss that album. Certainly, I don't know if you had the chance to listen to Retromorphosis.
Only the few songs that came out as singles. I haven't heard the album yet, but I'm
I
definitely going to check it out.
I had Jonas Bristling. I interviewed him like a few weeks ago, and
Right.
I think Christian Munzner did the lead guitar playing on
Yeah.
that album,
Yeah.
and it's a contender to me for album of the year. And I think your album is also on that short list of mine. Uh,
That's
Definitely,
good.
it's two different records, but two records in the realm of progressive death metal and experimenting a little
Yeah.
bit more. Yeah, so
Still sensible. Yeah.
that's cool names to have.
But now we have to wrap it up because I really have to
Yeah,
take it like massively.
that's why you are moving so much.
Yeah, I'm like doing the
It's like
dance.
dancing.
I'm doing the peaky
Yeah.
dance.
But it was a wraparound. I just wanted to underline the release of your new album. Thank you for all the time you give to my channel and to answer so many questions and also telling us so many great stories and putting the record straight with that Obscura thing. So thank you for
Dude,
that.
thank you.
One,
Thank you for the opportunity and all the best for your channel. And hope we can do this again sometime.
oh, totally. We'll keep in touch and have a good leak. Cheers.
Again. Bye
When
bye.
you have to, you have to.
When you have to go, you have to go. Bye bye.
Bye bye.